That, and they will say it is better to say that the president has approved a new minimum wage for civil servants. But if the president is present, we would now like Mr. President to accompany us on a tour of community self-help projects. Or would Mr. President like a drink? So for traditional rulers, use His or Her Royal Highness, abbreviated as HRH, for princes, paramount chiefs or clan heads, and His or Her Majesty for heads of established kingdoms and ethnic nationalities, including those ones that have been politically recognized as first class. They have become His Majesty. But you know that some kingdoms are politically recognized. Historically, they do not have any antecedents to give them that advantage. But once a chieftaincy law has been created in a state and someone is recognized as first class, address him as His Majesty. If you call him His Highness, you might be seen to be insulting him. So let's not say His Royal Majesty, because that's also, I mean, royal entails what? Majesty. And it's a tautology or superfluous to qualify majesty with royal again. Now, the proper order of address is honorific, name of subject, before either number on dynastic lineage or traditional, traditional title, or traditional title, then number on dynastic lineage. Let me give you an example with my own king. His Majesty, King Professor Theophilus Prince, Commander of the Order of Niger, Amakri the 11th, Amayanabo of Calabar. What do you want this? Yes. It's a mouthful, but you will do it too. Use hot water and eat very well. Or take banana. Now, the importance of the number on dynastic lineage is to proclaim the antecedents of the stool occupied, that it has a long history behind it. I remember some years ago, a young woman became widowed. She lost her husband, a much older man, and for some reason, leaning on her own limited understanding, she tried to do an obituary announcement and picked on one of the titles of the man, a title that was given to him shortly before his death by a community, something one. The man's family, his friends, and even other people who are simply preservers of culture almost killed her, because he had a title that had a fourth dynastic lineage, something the fourth, and you are now referring to him with this common thing that they gave to him, something the first. Is she mad? I mean, she killer? All those questions arose. So please, Amakri the 11th, you can see how old. Don't make that mistake, I beg you. Next slide. Yes.
Yes, I understand you when you say Your Majesty. Royal again. This applies if your Royal Highness.
Okay.
I've been corrected by my minister once.
That's.
It has to be Your Highness. That you don't need to put the royalty there. The royal, yes, just Your Highness. The royal father of social, so then you can go ahead to speak it. But when you want to say, address that as Your Highness, not Your Highness. Even as you write HRH, His Royal Highness, you can write it when you're speaking, you just say
Your Highness.
It's my minister correct. It's good.
Hello, did you hear her? Did you hear her?
Yes.
That it is also superfluous, repetitive, tautology, semantic redundancy to say His Royal Highness. That should just be Your Highness. I think there's sense in it too.
Yes, a minister.
Yes. No, it's not just because he's a minister, but I'm thinking about it in terms of saving time and doing the proper protocol. Yes.
When you say Your Highness, I believe when somebody is referred to just as just His Highness, referring to a religious person.
It's a
That's
royalty.
where I hear that. Your
No,
Highness,
it's a royalty.
referring to.
No, highness. Well, I don't know. It's possible that some religions actually use highness. Some religions use highness. So again, now that means that to differentiate between a religious highness and a traditional ruler highness, you might now need that royal. However, from what she said, what has occurred to me is the fact that if the person is present and you're observing protocol, and you say, His Excellency, Your Excellency, Your Highness, I think it's neater than Your Royal Highness. Are we in agreement? Your Highness. And we know it is that highness we are addressing, not a religious highness elsewhere, because the person is present. Yes.
I would imagine that we probably borrowed this from the Europeans.
And we added to it too. We didn't merely borrow.
The Europeans who refer to the minor royals as HRH. I'm imagining that is the reason we adopted HRH.
In fact, maybe I should mention this before I forget. Yesterday, our chairman, Directors Conference Committee chairman, was referred to what? As the what? As the queen. And somebody purported to be the king. Strictly speaking. No. When I say someone purported, even her husband cannot claim to be king again. Strictly speaking, if you have a queen, there's no king. And if you have a king, there's no queen. It's either the king is the ruler, the royal ruler, or the queen is the royal ruler. Isn't it? And his spouse or her spouse is not the same thing. The English. Yes. When someone is a queen, her husband or spouse is not the king. And if a man is the king, his wife is not automatically the queen. Yes, it's just that person. Yes.
I want to say that this thing is sensitive in our environment. But let's be clear. Look, when somebody got admission to a university in England from Nigeria, it's from a royal house, the recognized royal house in Nigeria. I don't think there's anyone that will recognize.
No, some just claim it. I'm even planning to claim a king of protocol.
But the admission letter to the prince here, issued from England, they were mindful enough from option to address him as His Royal Highness. So, just like Charles is being addressed.
Yes.
His father is acknowledged as His Royal Majesty. Now, let's face this. If you go and address the father in public as Your Majesty, you know how sensitive these things can be. He will tell you, even the people in England call him His Royal Majesty. Then now, you are removing the royal. You understand? This is play out on a serious level. So I think it's something like we've discussed here. It's something that you're going to have to creatively, sensibly, by your understanding of your audience, handle. There are no strict rules to it.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. I think we, having agreed that it is cultural, it is better to concede to what happens locally within that culture than to insist on what you know as universal. You can have your say, but let them have their way.
I just want to add to that. Just for the little experience I had some time back. If it's an event that you are only being invited to moderate, always draw the protocol as you think it is based on the guest list you have and share with whoever is invited. That saved me on 2 occasions. Because, like you said, I have something in my
But
head.
they might not tell you that when the emir stretches his hand, you should not shake his
So,
hand.
when I was fortunately for me, I did not fall in that. I didn't fall in that trap. So what happened was that I drew up the protocol list as I thought it should be based on, because I asked them who are the invited guests. So when I saw it with my own little knowledge of hierarchy and everything, and I gave it to the person who invited me, say, look through it. Are you okay with it? He did some adjustment truly, saying this one should come first, this one should come next. I think I can always save myself with that. So if anybody should raise an eyebrow after I've drawn my protocol, I can always say the person who invited me vetted my protocol list. So
Yeah, I think it's useful to have that kind of defense, that you didn't merely act on your own, or you relied on counsel from people there. Sometimes I found myself, you're even as an MC, just an ordinary MC, they bring a piece of paper to you containing a name that you should recognize the person. Now, the person who has written the name has either made a fundamental error, or even where an error has not been made, the person's handwriting is worse than a doctor's prescription. So you see a different thing from what is on that paper, and you speak accordingly. Most times I actually do a disclaimer that if this person were my student, he would not pass exam until he knows handwriting. All right, so yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering the explanation you gave concerning on the recognizing the king maybe at an event. And wanted to ask if at last event for him is there, the wife is there to explain. So you are saying that we should not mention the queen.
I'm not saying don't mention the queen. I'm saying we know that when there is a king, you can't have a queen. But if the local practice is that the king is recognized along with his queen as a queen, then by all means make that concession.
To answer your question, I think they have their own
Ways,
traditional
yes,
titles
yes.
already.
In most cases,
Or something like that. So maybe you have to
use the
that
local
their own
expression
title.
rather than the translation, which may be defective in properly capturing the concept. All right, so some forms of address for males and females are His or Her Excellency, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairman. Female activists would prefer chairperson. Chairwoman is also grammatical, but old-fashioned. Now, for self-introduction, the order is first name, middle name, and surname. First name or forename or personal name is called first name because it appears first. Middle name is middle because it appears in the middle. And surname is also called last name because it appears at the end. So for me, the name is Karibi. That's the name my parents gave me. My middle name, Tamnemi, no, Karibi was given to me by my grandfather. My father gave me Tamnemi, and it's my middle name. And then my surname is George. That's the family name. That's the last name. I know that it is common and has become somewhat fashionable for people to introduce themselves, mentioning their last name first. But please, that form that said surname first does not say when you are introducing yourself, you should say your surname first. The proper order is first name, last name. Please, let's take note of this. That's why it's also called last name. All right, next slide. Okay, so we are almost done with, or we are done with strictly protocol matters, and we're now going to time management. Now, first of all, let me say reckoning of time started in the Bible, in the creation story, with the division into day and night, right? At least for most of us. It was not until sometime around 1500 BC that in Egypt, sundials were used to also measure time. Over time, we now have the marine chronometer and so on and so forth. But today we have what? Sophisticated digital devices that record and reckon time to the last fraction of a second. So what's the whole purpose of time management? For us to do the things we need to do more efficiently, more effectively, and not waste time. First, the concept of African time, or African man time, as some people say, is something that has fascinated me. And I have tried to put some speculation on it, that in those days, in the time of our forefathers, reckoning time didn't occupy such an important commodity to be used. The true mark of the civilized person was the one who did not rush to that event as if he did not have food at home. So you leisurely strolled down to do what? To show that I'm here to honor an invitation, not because of your food. That's what you are trying to say. Now that attitude has been carried into modern business and social relations, which operate on a different requirement of time. But to make that adjustment from African time to today's business time has been difficult for many of us. Yet, it is proper that we do it. Now, in 1993, Ebiowe Toby, now Justice of the Court of Appeal, addressed us, presented a paper on effective time management, a desideratum for success, at the annual conference of Rotary Club District 9140 in Uturu. And these are things that he observed, about 15 issues that have to do with, that interfere with our proper utilization of time. Telephone interruption, visitors dropping in without appointment, meetings both scheduled and unscheduled. Oh, this is really, anyway, it's there. It's even I can't read it well. I'm so sorry. But you'll get it properly in the paper. Now, meetings both scheduled and unscheduled, crisis situation for which no plans were possible, lack of objectives, priorities, and deadlines, cluttered desk and personal disorganization, involvement in routine and details that should be delegated to others, attempting too much at once and underestimating the time it takes to do it, failure to set up clear lines of responsibility and authority, inadequate, inaccurate, or delayed information from others, indecision and procrastination, lack of clear communication and instruction, inability to say no, lack of standard and progress report that enables a company managed to keep track of development, and finally, fatigue. All these. Now he went on, next slide please, to also censure procrastination, that for most people, it is a real problem. And we know the popular saying, procrastination is what? The thief of time. And I'm sure there is nobody in this hall that has not at one time or the other been guilty of procrastination. And we end up doing the lastminute.com thing. So in the 21st century, what in addition to all those issues that were addressed in that paper, what are the time management issues and trends? And I start with agenda and protocol. Now, agenda for events need to be kept simple and relevant to the subject of the event, not needlessly complex. Artistic entertainment, for instance, performances by dancing troupes, drama troupes, and so on and so forth, usually constitute part of the ceremonial opening of an event, isn't it? But sometimes these activities are so many or are given so much time on the agenda that before you know it, participants go into loss of enthusiasm and energy to be part of that event, with the consequence that when the main substance of event is happening, some people are so tired they are leaving the ceremony. Yes, sir.
Barrister, I think that must be the reason why you removed it yesterday.
No, I didn't remove it, but I think that Providence removed it so that we can concentrate more. Thank you. So there is also what I call hidden agenda. Hello? How many of us have attended a wedding reception? A wedding reception where attended a wedding reception where breaking of kola nuts, hello, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Is introduced, but it is not there. Okay, you have seen another trend, fundraising. Okay, all those who love this man and who are his brothers and who are his friends, just only 20 of you, just come out, drop 1,000 naira each. Hello? Okay, you even have more experience than me. But I'm sure what I'm talking about is not strange to you. That is what I call hidden agenda. Because it's not expressly stated on the order of events that you and I have, and yet it is introduced. Let us be careful in managing hidden agenda. And then you may also have maybe a chairman of an event that is a problem to the event. Hello?
Yes.
No, not you. That one talks too much and wants to punctuate every aspect of the agenda. Do you know what you can do? Commit microphone coup against him. Do you know what microphone coup is? I think there are two mics here. One is usually on the high table. Pretend that one is dead. Let the MC have only custody of the only one that is still alive, so that that chairman at least can be bridled to an extent. Hidden agenda. Let them not spoil things for us. Now, we've already talked about observing protocol, and why it is proper to adopt the agreed protocol so we don't extend things too much. The next is the brief. What is a brief? Grammatically, a brief is something that is short or occupies very limited space. But for lawyers, public relations, advertising, personnel, a brief is the background information given to you to accomplish a task. Right? That's a brief. Unfortunately, most times the brief does not cover the field in a manner that will help you do the task. So if you are given a brief and in your opinion it is inadequate, you have a duty to ask questions. Otherwise, if you move with that inadequate brief, the work you will do will be condemned and subject to repetition, which is what? Time wasting. So it's good to ask questions. And as much as possible, if you are the one giving the brief, please put it in writing. Are you with me? Put it in writing. Because if you put it in writing, it helps you also cover the field, because you will see better that there are things you should have included that are not part of the brief that you are given. So a poor job would need to be repeated in more time wasting. So as much as possible, let the brief be in writing, which is why in the civil service, policies are usually expressed in circulars. Are you with me? Because that circular properly defines the position of the organization as far as that subject matter is concerned. Otherwise, they will just simply maybe call a meeting of the relevant heads of organizations and brief them in the mistaken belief that each of them would jot what has been said and would take it to his own or her own organization and cascade it for the benefit of all others. Yes, sir.
Just to maybe add, sometimes maybe your principal calls you and wants you to do certain things. That's why we go with the notes. As is speaking, you are taking notes. Maybe later I must say, is this an understanding of what you want me to do? Is that okay?
Precisely. It's your duty. Having taken notes and observed any ambiguities, lack of clarity anywhere, ask questions that the matter be clarified. Because there are some principals who are very poor at briefing people about what they want. And the man expects you maybe to write a memorandum that is going to the Federal Executive Council. Meanwhile, the proper brief is not given to you. How do you accomplish that? So take on the burden of obtaining clarification. Good old diary for time management. As lawyers will tell you, it is a diary that they use to record all their court appointments and other meetings. How many of us use diaries here? Oh. Unfortunately, I'm not very good at it. Unfortunately, I'm not very good at it.
How do you take dates?
I don't practice litigation. I'm not into litigation practice. You know, I don't. I'm not very good at it, but it's very important. I know that today the electronic diary through your handheld device has come into play. But please, because these devices notoriously have a bad habit of failing, of crashing when you need them most, have a hard copy as backup. Please, it's important. The next one is using the internet, telephone practice. I beg your pardon. And I'm going to speak a lot here. The cell phone is probably our most ubiquitous companion today. Perhaps because it is a work tool. Paradoxically, just as it connects people that are distant, so does it seem to disconnect those that are physically proximate. There is therefore need to distinguish between its social and business functions. It is irritating, and I'm speaking personally, it is irritating to a busy man when you call him and he manages to leave what he's doing to answer the call. And your first question is, how is the family? How are you? Those questions are social noises that, if answered truthfully, will not change anything. In his book, How to Talk to Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere, Larry King said that most people, if you answer that question, they're not even listening. And he showed the example. Somebody asked such a question. The man now gave a litany of all the challenges in his family, illness, this, that. The other person who asked the question, how are you, or how is your family, just allowed him to unburden himself. At the end of his day, he said, good. Then he now went into the business of calls. So why are you wasting my time asking me how is my family or how am I? Hello? Yes.
Culturally, in Nigeria, culturally, in Nigeria, people expect you to be exchange pleasantries. You know, those
We're not doing cultural this thing. I'm talking about business calls. You are calling me about a business matter, an official matter. Don't ask about my family. If I'm very busy, it's to answer that question, I must all the home training my mother gave to me to be able to answer. I'm fine, and I answer it so grudgingly. If you are sensitive, you will observe that this man is not answering well. Yes, I know it is our culture when we meet. You know, among the Oba in River State, for instance, the greeting is like a long, dramatic exchange. You know, but the telephone is a business tool. It is not for that physical exchange, where maybe a person's capacity for oratory is judged by how well he does that greeting exchange. Yes.
How do you balance this with the cultural expectation?
Okay. If those questions are to be asked, do so at the end of the call or at the end of discussing the business, provided the mood is right. Yes, sir.
I don't intend to contradict, but the point is there are certain things that are cultural, like you said, that is one thing. Because if we stretch it, we'll say that there is no need for even saying good morning when you call, because it's not part of what you are trying to say. You should go straight to the business. But the point is taken really that we need to minimize on those introductory speeches and all that before we go into whatever, especially when it's a business call, like you said. Because even in the West and in other societies, they say, how do you do, how are you, and all that, which is still part of the initial greetings before you go into the main points that you want to discuss. But the point is taken, we should reduce them as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I like that, because I was taking a really hard stance. You know, I was taking a really, and quite frankly, I have no apologies for it. Because when you are busy, those questions are irritating. Yes, Chairman.
I think one of the reasons why we come for trainings or meetings like this is that we should be able to go back and change some norms. I know lots of us travel for summer. The first time I had to call a white business lady when I traveled abroad, I was kind of disoriented when she picked the phone and said, hello, Sentina, how may I help you? That was just off. And because that was what I was expecting, the next 2 seconds, I didn't know what to say. Because I was expecting, how are you? So I just said, Tina, how may I help you? I said, so after I regained my consciousness, I said, I like to speak with Oliver. So one moment, and that was all. Oliver came on, Oliver here, how may I help you? And we talked not up to 1 minute.
Straight to the point.
Business is business. Yeah. We must be able to be disruptive in this area. Let's change it. Pick up your phone, John here. That's all. That's really what we are about. Yeah, we can do it. It's business.
We are not saying for social calls among family members, you should do the same.
I had a call when I was having breakfast. An important call. But the lady went on, so hi to you, how you doing? How many participants? Hey, yeah, I'm sorry, I've been there. I just put the phone somewhere now because I'm busy. And are you still there? I said, yes, I'm here. So, because I want to come next year. He said, anyway, where I'm calling. I want to find out if it's possible for me to have material. It's not that I don't want to come. Then she went on change this thing. Time is always
All right, I'm unable to resist bringing in this. The question, how was your night? Please, how was your night? Is not the same thing as I hope you rested well or you had a pleasant night's rest. In strict idiomatic English, how was your night is a question Innocent and I will exchange to compare notes on how guilty we were the previous night. You go to a pub or nightclub with your friend and you pick up a lady and go home or somewhere, and the following day your friend asks, how was your night? The meaning of that question is, oh boy, it happened. Hello? That's the meaning. Stop saying, how was your night? When people ask me, I look at them as if, what kind of thing is this now? Eh? What is concerning with my night?
I think on that, I've had this before. There was a lady who worked with me, and she was the first person that told me this. That hello, so that you don't say how was your night. That not the bad English. As he said, it connotes something.
It is
different.
English.
No,
it is English, but
the connotation
different idiomatic meaning.
Now, where do we place? Because we are 200 million, over 200 million people in Nigeria. To start this, I'm noticing it. But where do we place the I don't those who study language? Something like how expressions and language or words metamorphosize into something that now becomes commonly acceptable. I don't know what term is used for it in language studies. So much so that until I got to hear that from that lady, I never knew that this was the connotation. And when I ask people, they answer me politely. My night was fine. So
it's either like you, they didn't know what it meant, or as you said, they were too polite to ask, say, boy, this kind PR man, he don't know what I was in life.
So in that sense, can we say that expression, just for purpose of knowledge, is becoming, that is the word, acclimatized to our society?
Unfortunately, yes, that's how, and that's how all protocol observed also has become the Nigerian way. Remember when Mark Zuckerberg came, the Facebook owner, when he came, he used it and laughed. He was laughing at us. You are the all protocol observed people.
So I have a different view. I think we are overly obsessed with this kind of cultural imperialism. Every country that has English as their mother tongue or their official language have their own kind of cultural English that they speak. The Americans have it, the Australians have it, the British people have it. Even regionally, they have certain ways of saying things. I think we need to be very careful not to over police our English to say what is right or what is wrong. I think the communication and what it connotes as what you're saying is very important. But we have to be very careful at over-policing certain lexicons. Like, for example, it is Nigerian English to say she put to bed, right? And maybe purists may say, oh, that is not correct, but that is how we speak our English here in Nigeria, and we understand it that way. I may think, yes, how was your night has a kind of lurid connotation, but the generality of the population understand that communication as how are you, how, how did you fare, how did you sleep well? All of those connotations are tied into that. So I think there's a cultural imperialism going on here when it comes to thinking
Okay,
how we in Nigeria speak English.
sorry, let me, before I take other contributions, just hold on. Let me intervene. I agree with you that there are Nigerian expressions. One of the ones we use in the civil service is not on seat. And I'm actually disappointed that it has not entered the English dictionary. The way bungalow, which was originally Indian, is now in the dictionary. Or put to bed and things like that. But where we already know that the original native speaker uses this expression to mean this, and we have the enlightenment to know that that is not the kind of conversation, neutral conversation we should have with one another. I think we should steer clear. But things like he is not on seat, he put to bed, and so on and so forth, I may not quarrel too much with them. I may just remark, oh, it's not the way the native speakers say it. But please, let nobody ask me how was your night. It didn't worry me.
Let me.
I have no problem with Happy New Month and Happy Sunday.
Let me say something. You see, like the chairperson of the conference said, look, the chairman, generally speaking, we are here to learn. We all came to this conference to learn and take one or two things out there. I am a legal practitioner with a litigation bias. So I know one or two things about the consequences, the legal consequences of how was your night. The National Industrial Court, Abuja, has imposed severe sexual harassment sanctions on some parties before that court because of that phrase, how was your night. You understand? So it's not just a cultural thing. It is coming, the jurisprudence is coming from the International Labour Organization. And this problem is always issuing out of the workplace. All right? The issues of sexual harassment have gone beyond academic to very practical issues. When you ask a woman, how was your night? A conference like this, yeah? At a conference like this, issues left conferences like this and proceeded to the courtroom, and people have been severely sanctioned. There are precedents for that. So it's not just something in my house. I can ask anybody, how was the night? How did you do? It's okay. But as a lawyer who knows the court, because of this innocuous phrase, as it were, I will not ask a woman in this conference. If I was here yesterday, I wouldn't ask you, how was your night this morning? I know better. All right? In Nigeria, I can ask a man. In Nigeria, I can ask a man because there is a law against
provided he's your friend and the level of familiarity between you will admit to sharing romantic adventures in the night.
Okay, thank you. Mine is just to say that we should maintain a middle ground. and not go to either extreme. Number one, we are here to learn, like he said. So we are supposed to be enlightened people. Some of us travel around the world. So if we start saying that this one is Nigerian English and we get stuck to it, and we say that those that are saying we should say it properly are imperialists, then we'll also go somewhere else and then we'll make goof there if we don't learn the right thing. So it's important to know what the right thing is. However, I also feel that we should maintain a middle ground because, like she rightly said, every society tends to speak in a particular way. There are some that to me are extreme, like how was your life? I will never say that that one is Nigerian English. It's unacceptable to me. However, there are also some words that, for instance, I'm sure some of us know that recently words like damful got into the English dictionary. And that is in the UK or America, they don't know what damful is. But they thought that we call it damful. In India, they have rickshaw and some other things. That is the way they call it. And the English people say that this is how they call it, and they put it in their dictionary. That if you go to Nigeria, this is what damful means. So if I say damful even in London, they don't understand. I'm telling okay, in Nigeria, it refers to a minibus or something. So the point I'm making
check the dictionary and
yeah, and they'll say that it's there.
very soon we will include keke.
In fact. So the point I'm making is let's know the right thing. Since we are civilized people, so that if you travel or you are anywhere, you say the correct thing. But let's also be polite enough and humble enough that when my next door neighbor, the guy on my street says, I want to go to the barbing salon, I should not insult him and say there is no word called barbing or something like that. So that's just the point I'm making. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we proceed? You are taking too much of my time. Actually, you are taking my time. Madam Chairman, application for extension of time. Is it granted? Thank you.
I agree with the position taken. But I would like to say this. Where I want us to have our own Nigerian English should be probably how we speak, not what is spoken. Now, in Nigeria, we say, well, the hustle is real. And I know the meaning of hustle. I'm paranoid. I said, oh, paranoid. He wants to say, I'm angry. You know what I'm talking about. Well, he's mentally ill if you say I'm paranoid. He's afraid of unknown. So we shouldn't just say, because it's a Nigerian English, and we use the right words, the wrong tenses. And I expect the other person to understand the meaning of, derive the meaning from my body language or what I'm trying to say. So we should even, I see a lot of people write, when they use their computers, they write center, T-E-R. And it says, is there American? Some of us we speak in one breath, schedule and schedule. And we have to, let's take one.
Consistency.
Let's be consistent.
Thank you very much. Yes. Chairman,
It's not really a question. I'm just thinking that we're placing a lot of emphasis on how was your night. And what I want to say is that if all of this has shown the way the English language is responding to the socio-cultural situation of Nigeria. We are just taking one, and we can start to talk, to mention so many. I just have one. A tree does not make a forest. It's essentially Nigeria. Even though it doesn't break any syntactic rule, but it's semantically immediate to Nigeria. If you say that abroad, they are not likely to understand what you are saying. It's Nigeria, probably Yoruba, Ikikon, Kushi. We just transliterate that. And we have a whole lot of that in Nigeria. So maybe because the offensive angle of how was your night? So that's the number of that.
Yes. No, how was your night came in as part of the favorite greetings people give you during telephone conversations when they ought to simply move to the business at hand.
Yes,
that's why it came.
What I'm saying is that
Because if you call me or I call you, you're not likely to say a tree does not make a forest. It's,
And what I'm trying to say is that how was your night? It's a semantic situation in Nigeria. Nigerians understand it to mean another thing. The way we understand several other expressions to mean another thing here. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's a Nigerian thing. That's the way we understand it.
Okay,
But when we get there, but I want to align that we need to maintain a middle ground so that we learn.
even as you're maintaining a middle ground, when you know, don't do it. And as much as it is within your power, all those around you, family members, friends, and others who will be humble enough to accept correction, let them know what the proper thing is.
I think I need to sound a note of warning here. Public relations is an international profession. Even though I'm one of those that also believe that public relations is culture dynamic, we must be very careful. You cannot say because this is the way we speak here, we are also going to do it internationally. No, it is not our language. So we cannot enforce a new meaning into an existing phrase that is being used globally. Why must we be different? It's just like you telling me that a carbon in my language is no longer a carbon because Kenyans now believe that a carbon means goodbye. No. And like Innocent said, are we speaking American English or the British English? No, we cannot do both. No, you can't do both. That's confusion. Our curriculum is fashioned along the line of British. In my laptop, when it puts that correct, I remove it because I do UK English, British English. That is what we follow. We are not Americans. That's number two. Number three, remember that the works you do is not confined to Nigeria. And you are not going to finish writing an essay and you put key in Nigeria. How was your night means this? No. So I think we have to decide whether we want to evolve our own English. Until then, it is not our language. If we are using our mother tongue, then we cannot say, nobody will question us, this is our language. But we are using another man's language, and it's an international language. And what we do, we connect people. So at every given time, we must not be misinterpreted. So I don't see any cultural imperialism there. Because we want to talk about cultural imperialism, then we shouldn't be using the language at all. But as long as we are using that language, we must keep to the rules of the language.
Thank you. Now I've been told I have 5 minutes. My application for extension of time has not been granted. Okay, thank you. All right, let me rush through what I have here. Again, still talking about telephone practice. It is a breach of protocol to make business calls too early or too late without prior appointment or agreement. It's discourteous and disrespectful to the person called. And where the purpose of such call is to drop information, a short text message, may suffice. Again, if you call and it rings out twice without the other party answering the call, please stop calling and just send a short message to state who you are and why you are calling. Whenever it is convenient to the person, he may return your call or respond to your message. There are times that the person might even reject your call and send a message to say, send a text message. Don't reply that I will call you later. Send a text message, giving a hint of why you are calling. It may be so important to the person that he may leave his meeting to call you back, or he could then give you an answer to what you are seeking in 15 minutes. in a way that 15 or 10, 1 hour, 15 minutes or 1 hour may make a huge difference in you meeting or not meeting a deadline. Something like that happened to me. I was in church on a Sunday night, sorry, not Sunday, on a weekday evening, someone called me, I rejected the call and said, send me a text message. The person did not. The person now called me the following day, by which time it was too late. If I had got the text message right there, I would have given specific instructions that would have saved the person that trouble. So don't just say, I will call you later. Give a hint of why you are calling. Then the proper protocol while attending a meeting or similar event is to put your phone on silent mode or to switch off entirely. Usually the MC or facilitator, in case you forget, and most of us forget indeed, may, in the process of giving the HSC announcement, oh, the convenience is there, you can do this there, that's the exit in the event of a fire. Please remember to put your phones on silent mode. Many of us don't, or we don't even know how to put the phone on silent. And there are some terrible phones, Chinese phones. An experience I had during the swearing in of notaries public in the chambers of the chief judge of River State one day. A Chinese phone was ringing, saying, put it on silent, put it on silent. The guy was struggling with it, he could not. They said, switch it off, switch it off. He switched it off, the phone was still ringing. Remove the battery, remove the battery. Even in the course of an informal, private meeting, answering a telephone call may be considered rude and discourteous, when in the middle of something serious. So it will show you a call log. You can always call back. If you observe that it's a close family member and you fear it might be an emergency, just say, excuse me. And then if you find out the family member is on about something social, not so serious, you say, sorry, I'll call you back, I'm in the middle of a meeting. And then you switch off the phone and continue your conversation with the person you're talking with. So let me also say, if you miss a call, please call back. Don't do that kind of call that is so short that before the person answers the call, he's already disconnected. Call will call flashing. Don't flash, please. Just call properly. And if and let me also say that messaging platforms that are data enabled are no substitute for a plain call or SMS. Yesterday morning, someone tried to give me a WhatsApp call, and it was even a number not saved in my device. Meanwhile, the WhatsApp was struggling. He kept telling me connecting, reconnecting. And I was so irritated. I said, you think you're saving communication cost, but you're actually causing offense. Because my mood went, bad that the man was disturbing me so early in the morning. So let's know, and then if you need to make a call. Don't send a WhatsApp message that the man might read many hours later when the issue would have been treated. Now, using the internet and social media, yes, in many of our offices we have intranet and internet by which we communicate. These are also intended to help us save time. In most offices, circulars, notices, and so on are passed through WhatsApp and so on and so forth. So our laptops, our desktops, our personal handheld devices are all configured to give us alerts when these messages come in. We need discipline to distinguish between a business message to be attended to and a social message. If you get swamped trying to respond to social messages, you will waste your employer's time, and time you could really use in doing serious matters. So please, let's be careful. And the people who spend a lot of time attending to those social messages on WhatsApp are the people I call WhatsApp tigers. Their fingers are everything they see, they forward. without regard to the relevance of the subject, onto official group platforms where they are totally unnecessary, unwanted, and offensive. Some people have even been known to mistakenly drop pornographic materials because of that. Everything. So please, let's avoid being WhatsApp tigers. When we ask what's the relevance of this, they will apologize. Oh, it's a mistake. Then next time they will make the same mistake. And because they are official group platforms, we can't even expel them. So occasionally, admin may now lock the platform against people making posts. I do that a lot when I give notice of management meeting, because I know that there are some fair people amongst us. I just lock the platform so that they can't make any posts. Let everybody have the benefit of seeing the notice of meeting. After the meeting, I can open the platform for them to continue their behavior. And they end up sending things that are historically and logically fallacious. Political posts, religious stuff, and so on and so forth. You know. Now, another protocol of conduct on WhatsApp is when someone makes offensive posts, as much as is within your power, don't rebuke him or her openly. Engage him or her privately, please. Because people are more receptive to private criticism than open shaming. So please, let's do that. Let's not shame people so openly. All right, written documentary communication. Yes, that is the norm in most bureaucracies. Before now, the test of a memorandum or letter was its length, its weight, its volume, isn't it? Now we don't have time. Summarize everything. In your introduction or background, state what you need to state, including your prayer well in advance. Then when you go to the body where you have consideration, just use bullet points. Don't elaborate too much. Because the background would have helped the person. Just use bullet points to say, this is why we need to do this, justify, and then end with a clear expression of your prayers as well. And if you're minuting too, you know that minutes, especially those of us in the civil service, are so subject to ambiguous interpretation. Something happened once. The head of an organization, the commissioner rather, minuted PA on a file. And of course, that meant put away, isn't it? A clerk now took it to the commissioner's PA. So you can see how ambiguity, sometimes results in such situations. The next one is the secretary typist as an unnecessary middleman. I'm sure what I'm saying may be surprising to those of you in the private sector, but in the public sector, directors like me, big guys actually take pride in giving assignments to our secretaries. Let me tell you, those secretaries will introduce their own errors to your document, in addition to mistakes made by you that ordinarily you would see and correct if you are typing yourself. So please, let's avoid using those middle men secretary typists because they waste your time. First draft, second draft, third draft, and so on and so forth. Then the next issue is delegation, which is the problem most of us have, particularly because we have, especially in the civil service, because of the pecuniary benefits of certain tasks that you carry out, you hardly delegate, and in the process, you do not create those that will succeed you. So what happens is by the time you are leaving, there is nobody adequately prepared to step into your shoes. Whoever comes in or is brought in will now use another amount of time to learn to do the job as you were doing it. I hope that there's no contradiction between eliminating the secretary typist and delegation. One is useful to do, the other is just a waste of your own time. And then finally, by the grace of God, one good thing about COVID-19 is that we have virtual video meeting platforms now that help us to save time, travel time to attend the meeting physically. And then when we hold those meetings, because even though some of those platforms are free, in some cases we buy time. Even when it is free, you are using data, isn't it? So we have now learned to do our agenda in a manner that by the grace of God, all those point of order and those time-wasting things are avoided, and we can now hold meetings more reasonably. Finally, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, last slide, please. Last slide. If the purpose of public relations is to create and sustain good relations, if protocol and time management are to enhance the purpose of public relations, the next protocol and time management step is to register as a member of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, or regularize your meeting through recertification. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that sensitization, the need for all of us to be NIPR compliant. I have a confession. You know, when we were putting this together and discussing topics, issue of protocol and time management, some of us actually pulled it down that it wasn't necessary to be teaching directors protocols and time management and all of that. But sitting down and saying that it is the topic that has generated so much interest and attention and participation. And I think that also has to do with the way our resource person handled it. He brought in a lot of related. Thank you very much for appreciating him. And thank you very much, Barrister Karibi, for a wonderful job. He has also saved us time. And you know how? Now it's we're supposed to be supposed to have lunch at 12, not have tea break. So it has saved us having to have lunch. So we no longer have lunch today, we just go for tea break. So let's go for tea and coffee break, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.